Okay, so I'm not going to try to make this a perfect video. I really think I wanted to talk about um, this idea of spiritual sleeper cells. It's just been on my mind for a few months now. And I was driving around this morning and a whole conversation happened. So this is so fascinating to me. Um, my father loves movies, television movies, um, and all just a range of them. So we grew up with something always on in the house. And one of the themes that I was particularly interested in were spy movies. um, I like a lot of different kinds of things, but this was one that I was particularly fascinated by, and the ones that had this sleeper cell theme to it like really caught my attention for a period of time. So I'm sure everybody knows, but somebody would be going along in their life, minding their own business, and then they'd get a phone call, usually a phone call, and something in the words that were being spoken would just activate something in that person, and then they'd be an entirely different person with this deadly, usually deadly skill set. Right. So, I'm not the only one who's looking out at the world right now and getting this impression or making this connection of spiritual sleeper cells. But you might be someone who has been minding your own business in life and maybe even strongly against some of the things that you now have this interest in. You might find yourself becoming interested in things that just never made sense to you before, or things that were not even on your radar. There are a lot of people who are suddenly interested in meditation, crystals, Reiki, energy medicine, even just eating whole foods. People, more and more people are suddenly becoming aware of these things that have been around you. They've been out there in the culture for a long time, but people are starting to become aware of them and become interested in them. And suddenly, some people have gifts that are turning on. You might hear people use that language, all of a sudden I can feel energy, or my dreaming life has become very, very active, and maybe I'm even getting some information. You might hear people use the language of downloads. I'm receiving downloads, which is another way of saying I'm getting this information that's just coming to me. So I want to acknowledge that this is something that's happening. And the reason why I pause and smile is because when I first started noticing a lot of people all of a sudden talking about their crystals, or there's some controversy over who should be allowed to smudge or even use the word smudge. So smudging, smoking, which is taking dried plants and burning them aromatically in a room to clear energy, to set intention. There's a variety of reasons why someone would use that practice, but a lot of people started using that practice. People into astrology, that was a big one for me. I'm like, wait a minute. And this is what I'm getting to. This is why I was smiling, because when I saw all of this interest in yoga and meditation and astrology and crystals and all of this fringe information and these fringe practices, and I'm using the word fringe because other people have used it. That's not how I felt about it myself. what I'm saying is I felt very territorial. All of a sudden, all of these people were suddenly into these things that I had, in my professional experience, been ridiculed for, been ridiculed for. I mean, I could just leave it at that. There were also, like, when I was starting out professionally, there were a lot of people who felt that meditation and yoga in particular were like anti-God. They were anti-Christian. And there were people who would just absolutely not practice meditation at all, not understanding that there is precedence for it in the Bible with Christ. Christ went off into the desert often in meditation and contemplation. So I was just, as I was new to these things and learning things, a lot of the feedback came from people who didn't believe in energy, people who didn't believe that even what we were eating and putting into our bodies had any impact on our physical health, our emotional health, and for those who are tapped in, our spiritual health. So I felt territorial. I'm like, how dare you all of a sudden come in here, this space I've been like working under the radar in, being laughed at in, or dismissed in, all of this sort of thing. I'm over that now. It took me all of 2020 to be okay with the fact that the world is waking up to the fact that we have spiritual life, that spirituality is a part of this physical existence. So, what I would like to say now is welcome. If you find yourself being newly aware of the possibility that there might be more to you than your physical body and your physical experience of life, welcome, welcome, welcome. What I would like to offer are just some opening guidelines for you to keep in mind as you get into these things. So the first one is that you will notice that there are a lot of ways to express something anywhere in life. For example, at this point, we know that there are so many different ways to approach a dietary lifestyle, what we are eating. So many people in the camp of paleo, in the camp of keto, in the camp of like straight hardcore carnivore, vegan, vegetarian. Some of you, depending upon what you are tapped into, might even be or becoming aware of breatharianism, which are people who really, this is not my lifestyle because I really still love food, but they breathe. That is their nourishment. And you can go looking for that. It's very interesting to listen to people speak on that. It's important to know that just because there are many ways to approach a meditation practice, or many ways to approach astrological language, or many ways to approach the use of crystals, plant medicine, the variety does not make something untrue or untrustworthy. We have to remember that there is a planet full of human beings who are coming from different cultural backgrounds. Language is part of culture, but I like to separate language out also because different cultures have words for things that we don't have language for in English, for example. And so what that does, when we have a language for something, it gives us eyes to see and engage with something. That is one of the powerful things about astrological language, I believe. It's another language with which to interact with life. So, getting back to what I'm saying about the variety of things you're going to come into contact with if you are stepping onto the path of spiritual awareness. It's not necessary to dismiss something that someone else is practicing or deeply educated in just because it doesn't work for you or just because it doesn't make sense to you. And a lot of things probably are not going to make sense in the beginning. And it's probably going to feel overwhelming because there is so much information out there, so many possibilities and paths available for us to explore. So, when we understand this, it becomes really helpful to recognize that we are being called to things that have a particular meaning for us. So what I'm saying here, first of all, is in the field of possibilities, in the field of spiritual playground possibilities that you are now exploring, pay attention to the ones that really get your attention and let the rest fall away. You might come back around to something for a number of reasons. You might have a stronger skill set. You might have a broader language, which now allows you to understand something else. But in the beginning, you're being called to things for a purpose. So pay attention to the things you are being called for and engage with them. What you may discover is that it's something for you to go deeper with. And so you go deeper with it. You find a new teacher, or you find a teacher after having spent however long you've spent reading things online or reading books or in your own contemplation with yourself and questions you're asking yourself. That's a potential path. It's also really useful to keep in mind that we come into contact with things that also teach us about discernment, and they teach us how to refine our desires, our ability to know what's right for us, what's meant for us, what's actually aligned with us, and what's not. So you will have plenty of opportunity to come in contact with people, places, and things that are not actually in alignment, that might have seemed like they're in alignment. And the opportunity is to get really clear about what your beliefs are, what your values are, and what you're wanting to create in your life, in your relationships, in your environment. And sometimes we get attracted to things, or we think we need things that teach us that skill of aligned refinement. In other words, oh wow, that I really thought I needed that, or that was really attractive, but when I got in there and started investigating it a little bit, I realized that's actually not what I'm about, or that's not a fit for me. So we want to keep our minds open to possibility, and we want to be receptive to the invitations that come to us, also understanding that sometimes the invitations are exercises in self-refinement. Okay, so something else I would like to just offer you as a really useful skill, it's not actually a skill, it's a tool, is to find like-minded people. So there are more, like I would say, so much of what used to be considered occult information, which is information that's been hidden from view. That's what occult or occulted means. It's not. So my mind drops information, like a couple different levels of information. So what just happened there is, it's not the scary word we've been raised to believe about occult, the occult. And occulted things can be scary. So when you step onto this path of awareness, and I'm going to use the word spirit awareness, hopefully you won't get tired of hearing that, but one of the skills you're going to have to develop on some level is the capacity to work with a range of possibilities. The word nuance is really useful. It's not an either or. This is not an either or path, in the sense that we can always compartmentalize. Again, layers. So there will be plenty of times where we have to make decisions. I'm going this direction, which means I cannot go that direction. So that is an either or situation. Nuance, layers. You have to be willing to play. When you step into the realm of spirit and spiritual expression, a lot of the rules that many of us were raised on, they don't apply. Okay? So just know this, which means that it can feel really intimidating. It can feel really lonely. It can scare the heck out of people and make people want to backtrack. But once those spiritual eyes open, there's no going back. Like, you're awake. Once you're awake, and it's challenging, and we are more successful when we decide to cooperate with that eye-opening experience, that curiosity that you might be experiencing for the first time. Okay, so this contributes to what I started to say a few sentences ago, which is it's important to find people who are like-minded and like-hearted. Your current friends and family may or may not get it. If they get it, and if they're like on this path with you, then that's fantastic. You've got a support system. But if you find that you are the one who's starting to ask some different kinds of questions and starting to get curious about things that you weren't curious about before, it's going to be really important to tap into people who are also having these conversations, people who have some information for you that can help you continue your explorations and help you refine what's a yes for you and what's a no for you. So I just wanted to come in and welcome people in. I really was feeling really hostile last year, which was an interesting experience for me. Something that you will discover as you are opening up to the idea of soul expression, spiritual expression. And yes, there are people who consider soul and spirit different, and we can talk about that in another video. But you will be confronted with yourself, your habitual patterns of thinking, habitual emotional positioning. So many things came up for many of us last year. This was something that I just had to work with on another layer. It's something that's come up for me over the years, but last year really brought in my sense of possession of ideas. Yeah, so I think that's good. I think I'll stop here and let you digest and play with some of this, and I'll come back in another video and we'll talk about something else. Thanks so much. It would be great to hear from you in the comments below if you have some thoughts, or if some things are coming up for you, or if you have recommendations that could be helpful to other people who are maybe newly landing in this world of spiritual awareness. Okay, have a good one. Talk to you later.